ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
ततो जयमुदीरये.
ततो जयमुदीरये.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu
अष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
nityam bhagavata sevaya
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
bhagavati uttama shloke
भगवते उत्तमश्लोके
bhaktir bhavati naishtiki.
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, entitled Creation, Chapter 7, The Son of Drona Punished, text number 34. Sibiraya Ninishantam
निनिशन्तं
Siviraya Ninishantam
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
Rajva
रज्वा
Badva
बद्ध्वा
Ripum
रिपुं
Balad
बलात्
Rajva Badva Ripum Balad
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुं बलात्
Praha
प्राह
Arjunam
अर्जुनं
Prakupitaha
प्रकोपितः
Praharjunam Prakupito
प्राहार्जनं प्रकोपितो
Bhagavan
भगवान्
Ambuja Ikshanaha
अम्बुजेक्षणः
Bhagavan Ambuja Ikshanaha
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
Sibiraya Ninisantam
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
Rajva Badva Ripum Balad
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुं बलात्
Praharjunam Prakupito
प्राहार्जनं प्रकोपितो
Bhagavan Ambujekshanaha
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
Sibiraya Ninisantam
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
Rajva Badva Ripum Balad
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुं बलात्
Praharjunam Prakupito
प्राहार्जनं प्रकोपितो
Bhagavan Ambujekshanaha
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
Sibiraya Ninisantam
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
Rajva Badva Ripum Balad
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुं बलात्
Praharjunam Prakupito
प्राहार्जनं प्रकोपितो
Bhagavan Ambujekshanaha
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
Sibiraya Ninisantam
रज्वा
Rajva Badva Nirpum Balad
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकूपितो
Praharjuna Prakupito
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
Bhagavan Ambujekshanaha
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
Sibiraya Ninisantam
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुं बलात्
Rajva Badva Ripum Balad
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकोपितो
Praharjunam Prakupito
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
Bhagavan Ambujekshanaha Sibiraya Ninisantam
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुं बलात्
Rajva Badva Ripum Balad
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकुपितो
Praharjunam Prakupito
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
Bhagavan Ambujekshanaha
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
Hiraya Ninisantam
रज्वा बद्ध्वा निपुं बलात्
Badva Ripum Balad
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकुपितो
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकूपितो
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः। माताजी।
शिबिराय निमिषन्तं
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
रज्वा भद्वा रिपुंबलात्
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुंबलात्
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकूपितो
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकूपितो
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः।
शिबिराय निमिषन्तं
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुंबलात्
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुंबलात्
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकुपितो
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकूपितो
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः।
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुंबलात्
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुंबलात्
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकुपितो
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकूपितो
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः।
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
शिबिराय निनिशन्तं
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुंबलात्
रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुंबलात्
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकुपितो
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकूपितो
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः। ऑनलाइन। शिबिराय निनिशन्तं रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुंबलात् प्राहार्जुनं प्रकूपितो भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः। शिबिराय निनिशन्तं रज्वा बद्ध्वा रिपुंबलात् प्राहार्जुनं प्रकूपितो
प्राहार्जुनं प्रकोपितो
भगवान् अम्बुजेक्षणः। Synonyms: Sibiraya,
Shibiraya,
on the way to the military camp.
on the way to the military camp.
Ninisantam,
Nimishantam,
while bringing him.
while bringing him.
Rajva,
Rajwa,
by the ropes.
by the ropes.
Badhva,
Badwa,
bound up.
bound up.
Ripum,
Ripum,
the enemy.
the enemies.
Balad,
Balat,
by force.
by force.
Praha,
Praha,
said.
said.
Arjunam,
Arjunam,
unto Arjuna.
unto
Arjuna.
Arjuna.
Prakupitaha,
Prakupitaha,
in an angry mood.
In
in an angry mood.
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
the personality of Godhead.
The
personality of Godhead.
Ambuja Ikshanaha,
Ambuja Ikshanaha,
who looks with his lotus eyes.
Who
looks with his lotus eyes.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Translation. After binding Aswathama, Arjuna wanted to take him to the military camp. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, looking on with his lotus eyes, spoke to Arjuna in an angry mood. Translation with repetition. After binding Aswathama,
After binding Astadhama,
Arjuna wanted to take him to the military camp.
Arjuna wanted to take him to the military camp.
The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna,
The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna,
looking on with his lotus eyes,
looking
looking
on with his lotus eyes,
spoke to Arjuna
spoke to Arjuna
in an angry mood.
in an angry mood.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Both Arjuna and Lord Sri Krishna are described here in an angry mood. But Arjuna's eyes were like balls of red copper, whereas the eyes of the Lord were like lotuses. This means that the angry mood of Arjuna and that of the Lord are not on the same level. The Lord is transcendence. Pay attention, T is capital. And thus he is absolute in any stage. His anger is not like the anger of a conditioned living being within the modes of qualitative material nature. Because he is absolute, both his anger and pleasure are the same. His anger is not exhibited in the three modes of material nature. It is only a sign of his bent of mind towards the cause of his devotee, because that is his transcendental nature. Therefore, even if he is angry, the object of anger is blessed. He is unchanged in all circumstances. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are resuming our Bhagavatam, which we stopped for last few days or few weeks maybe. We are going back to the same situation where we saw that there were two Brahmastras which were released. One of the Brahmastra which was released by Aswathama he was not aware of how to retract. And Arjuna has retracted both the Brahmastras. And now in this verse, Arjuna is managed to bound Aswathama, and he's trying to drag him to the military camp. And something happens which is very interesting, which otherwise if an Acharya doesn't comment, we would have not noticed what is going on. So that's why we will see the purport little closely and understand what Prabhupada is trying to say. The verse is Sibiraya Nini Santam. Sibiraya. Sibira is the word which is used even in our colloquial terms for a camp. Sibira. Sibiraya, unto the Sibira, unto the camp. Nini Santam. Sibiraya Nini Santam Rajva Badva Ripumbalat. Nini Santam. While trying to take him to the military camp, the description of Aswathama is given. Rajva. He was bound in a rope. Badva. Bound with the rope. Rajva Badva Ripumbalat. Ripum is enemy. Balat with force. Like an animal which is usually, those who are sleepy or tired, you please go, there is no need to sit here. There is no compulsion. Whoever wants to hear can sit, otherwise you leave. Siviraya Nini Santam Rajva Badva Ripumbalat. Like sometimes an animal which is not treated with any respect, with it's just an animal. So it is bound. So like that, Arjuna has bound up Aswathama, Rajva, Badva, Ripumbalat. With his force, he has been able to bind Aswathama with the rope, and he is dragging him to the military camp. He was trying to drag him to the military camp. At that time, Praharjunam Prakupito. Praharjunam, he spoke, Prakupito, with great anger. Bhagavan Ambujekshanaha. He spoke to the Lord. The Lord, who's that Lord? One qualification or one description of the Lord is given. Ambujekshanaha. Ambuja Ekshanaha. The Lord who has got lotus eyes. Ambujekshanaha. The translation is, after binding Aswathama, Arjuna wanted to take him to the military camp. Rajva, Badva, Ripumbalat, Nini Santam, Siviraya. He wanted to take him to the military camp. The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, looking on with his lotus eyes, Ambujekshanaha, spoke to Arjuna in an angry mood. Praharjunam Prakupito. He spoke to Arjuna at an angry mood. Prakupitaha. That is the verse. I told you to pay attention to the word transcendence with a capital T. So today the roadmap that we have is, we will try to understand what is Lord's transcendence. What does it mean? Then we will see what is the cause of Jiva's present situation, even though Jiva is godly, or the living entity. He's eternal and he has got the same qualities and characteristics of that of a Supreme Lord. But why is he why there is this kind of tribulations and the precarious situation that the jiva is put into? And the third one is how the jiva can go back to its original position. So to start our discussion, let's start with the Lord's transcendence. Very interesting thing to know. Often when we speak about the descent of the Lord, like we had Gaura Purnima celebration, and we were mentioning about the Lord's incarnation as Chaitanya being the most merciful incarnation. People get this doubt in their mind that he's also another human being who has come. How can I understand that he is the Supreme Lord? Forget about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is even difficult to accept for Indians. If it is even Lord Krishna, people ask so many questions. Why did he dance with the gopis in the midst of the night? Or so and so forth. So many questions, doubts people have. That is why it is important to understand what is Lord's transcendence, because Prabhupada is talking about that in the purport, saying that there could be an ordinary living entity who might be angry. At the same time, the Lord is also angry. But even if the Lord is angry, the anger of Lord is transcendental. It is not the same as a jiva getting angry. How do we understand this? Very interestingly, in the chapter 4th of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked this question, Aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha katham etad vijaniyam tvamado proktavaniti. The beginning of 4th chapter, when Krishna says, Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham abhyayam vivasvan manave praha manuriksvakabe abravit. The first verse, when Krishna says that I spoke this knowledge to Sun God spoke to Manu, and Manu spoke to Ikshvaku, who comes in the dynasty of Lord Ram. Arjuna had this question in his mind, had this doubt in his mind. Who's Ikshvaku? Which dynasty? He's the forefather of Lord Ram. Lord Ram comes in that same dynasty. So when he spoke that, Arjuna immediately asked this question, and it's a very interesting question because it led to Krishna revealing his own nature, his own transcendental nature. It's like this, we all know when Prabhupada in the beginning days when he used to give Bhagavad Gita classes, he used to refer to a book which is written by Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, who was the former president of America. Yes. You just nodded. Yeah. He was the former president of India, right? So now imagine if I tell you, in my younger days, Radhakrishnan used to come to my house. He used to sit next to me. I used to teach him Bhagavad Gita. Now, like the people, all of you are sitting here, I was at Madhav's age, almost 12, 13, like that, about to get teen. Radhakrishnan used to come. He learned Bhagavad Gita from me only. And then he wrote that book. Later on, it became an instrument in Prabhupada's preaching. But that knowledge that he received was from me. What will you say? What do you think about that idea? Is it a good idea? You accept, you believe? Madhav? No? Come on, man. So like that, if somebody says, no matter how old I look, I can't be that old that, I would have given this knowledge to Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan at my young age, and he received that. Something similar to that happened to Arjuna. He's telling Krishna, we both are contemporary. Aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvata. You are so junior. You are born with me. I know about you. How can I believe that param janma vivasvato, Vivaswan, who's born so earlier, so old to you, you have spoken this knowledge. Katham etad vijaniyam tvamado proktavaniti, that you have spoken this knowledge. And that led to Krishna speaking about himself. He's saying that there are many births that you and me both have gone. You don't remember any of them, but I remember that. So the first thing that we have to remember when we talk about Krishna's transcendence, anybody remembers what is the first verse that Krishna speaks about himself in the 4th chapter? About himself. after this question is being asked. Okay, about himself. That comes much later, before that. उससे पहले. उससे पहले. What is that? Search करो, search करो. Vyatitani. That is okay. Next one. Ajopi san avyayatma. Bhutanam Ishwaropi san. Prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamaya. It's a very important verse, because often people, when they consider the Lord when he descends, especially in the human form, they think he is also like us. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishwaropi san prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamaya. The word atmamaya is a very important word. Atmamaya means the Lord, Atmamaya means the Lord comes out of his own sweet will and by his own internal energy. He is not forced to take birth like us, where we were forced to take birth based on our past karma. Even though the Lord is Ajo, he is unborn. Ajopi san avyayatma, he is eternal. And the same thing Jiva also can say, I am also eternal, I am also unborn. But the next line Krishna says, Bhutanam Ishwaropi san. But I am the controller, I am Ishwara. I don't believe you. Then Krishna says, Prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamaya. I actually descend by my own sweet will. We don't take birth as per our own will whenever we want. Okay, time has come, now I'll take birth. We didn't come like that. We are forced to take birth, accept body based on our past karma. This is Atmamaya is a very important thing. Internal energy, not internal birth. Internal energy of the Lord. That's how he comes. Then he says about Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam smijamyaham. Then paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya cha duskritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Actually, killing of the Lord also is a blessing for the person who's getting killed. Why? How? Because he is protecting the paritranaya sadhunam, which is easy to understand. Okay, he is delivering the people who are sadhus, who are devotees. But how vinasaya cha duskritam is also a good thing. Unless the Lord kills them, unless the Lord finishes, destroys them, they will continue to do the sinful activities, and they will get more and more implicated in that reactions of those actions. Hence, the Lord's compassion on a living entity has to be understood through the eyes of the scriptures. Otherwise, the Lord's compassion cannot be understood by ordinary human being. Why did the Lord kill? Why did he kill Kamsa? Why did he kill Shishupal? There is a reason. I mean, if it is not curtailed and if it is not done by the Lord himself, that act of Lord of killing is actually an act of compassion, even though externally it looks like, why did the Lord kill? Prabhupada gives a very nice example to illustrate this point, that Lord's appearance in this material world is not like the same as that of any one of us, by giving this example of a king of a kingdom. Once on his own birthday, he decided to enter into a community like Arrive. No, he decided to enter into a prison house. And in that prison house, he thought, okay, let me distribute some laddus to people. So one prisoner like us who are here in this material world have accepted this body. One of us thought, okay, now the Maharaj also has come inside this prison. He also is like one of us. He is coming like, us, like I have been put into this jail, now the king has come. And what is the difference? He's the king, I am also this thing, we are also in the same house, same prison house. But it is not true, because, we were forced to be behind the bars, but here the king has come by his own sweet will, and he can go back also in his own sweet will. Similarly, the Lord appears in by his own sweet will, and he descends, and he goes back by his own sweet will when the purpose is done, is over. It's a very important thing. These things are very nicely highlighted in Bhagavad Gita at various places in our scriptures to tell us the difference between an ordinary human being and the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord comes out of his compassion. And his every single activity is also transcendental. That is why the 9th verse of 4th chapter, what is it called? Then Janma karma chame divyam. The word divyam is actually transcendence. Janma karma chame divyam means the birth and the activities of the Lord are transcendental. Both this janma and karma, they are not ordinary. The Lord appears out of his own sweet will, and his action, karma, it is not exactly action, it's actually leela, the leela that the Lord performs. They are all transcendental. And this transcendental activities and the leela of the Lord, once one knows in truth, tattvataha. Truth means in philosophical truth. Philosophically, if one understands this, who's this Lord? What is his position? Why is he taking birth? What are his activities? Philosophical truth. If one understands, then tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti swarjuna. Tyaktva deham punarjanma. When we quit our body, when we die, punarjanma naiti. We will not get one more birth again. Mameti. We will go back to Krishna. Mameti Pandava. So this is what Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4 it talks about. But very interestingly, when we look at our lives, we don't have naturally any attraction for Krishna. We don't want to surrender to Krishna. We don't want to engage in devotional service. It's a very big tapasya for each one of us to be engaged in devotional service, because there is this Vaidhi Bhakti, or this regulated devotion which has been given to us by our acharyas. So we are forced to follow. Why is it like that? Why did we come to this situation where we are being constantly beaten up by Maya, and we are being forced to go through all these miseries, yet we are not surrendering to the Lord? What did go wrong? How did it change? How did these things change? That is the second thing that we're going to talk about, is the cause of Jiva's present situation, even though Jiva is godly. How did that happen? All of us, we know this, but very interesting to pay attention how our scriptures talk about this, and how precarious our situation is, and how we are caught up in this position, yet we are so callous not to come out of this situation. So the first thing that our scriptures say is that the Jiva, or the living entity, gets entangled in this material world, accepts these bodies because of the misuse of his free will, misuse of his identification. The Chaitanya Charitamrita says that there is a ratna of our free will. It's not exactly jewelry, it's a gem of free will which has been given to us. And we misused that free will. Misuse of free will led to accepting body. Basically, it led to a covering of false ego first, where I thought that I am this body, I am this man, I am this woman, I am an Indian, I am an American, I am an whatever, African, and I have to enjoy in this material world in this particular way. So the first thing why we are in this situation is misuse of our free will. Very interestingly, there is a purport of Prabhupada where he says that a conditioned soul, although cultivating Vedic knowledge, continues to identify himself to some extent with the material body and mind, and consequently with the material universe. We start identifying ourselves because of this misuse of free will. Even though we are studying Vedic knowledge, we continue to identify ourselves with the material body and mind, and consequently with the material universe. There is a very beautiful verse in Bhagavatam which is worth paying attention. And the verse goes like this. Narara jodupas channaha swajyotsna rajitair ghane aham matya bhasitaya swabhasa purusho yatha. Narara jodupas channaha swajyotsna rajitair ghane aham matya bhasitaya swabhasa purusho yatha. Very interestingly, before I explain the meaning of the verse, I'll just show you a picture. What do you see in this picture? Which one is covered? Moon is covered with clouds, okay. Anything else? There is nothing And there is no one who's hiding here, but I want you to think more about this picture. Okay, moon is covered with the clouds is obvious. What else is happening? Darkness. Okay. What about darkness? There is darkness in the picture. It's night time, you're seeing. Okay. Full moon. Okay. Okay. What else? Huh? Passing clouds. Okay. Okay. Now I want you to look at the cloud which is covering the moon and the cloud which is slightly far off. Is there any difference? What is the difference? Mm. Hmm. Hmm. Brighter. Is it really the case? It is not. It is because of the moon's light that cloud which is covering the moon is appearing brighter. Very interesting phenomenon. Bhagavatam's examples are very powerful. So he's telling, Na rara jodupas channaha so jyotsna rajitair ghane aham matya bhasitaya sobhasa purusho yatha. The translation is, during the rainy season, the moon was prevented from appearing directly by the covering of the clouds, which were themselves illumined by the moon's rays. The moon actually is shining. Because of the shine of the moon, the cloud is appearing bright. Similarly, the living being in material existence is prevented from appearing directly by the covering of the false ego, which is itself illumined by the consciousness of the pure soul. There is a covering of false ego, the misuse of the free will, the ratna of our free will. When we misuse that, we start misidentifying ourselves. There is a misidentification. The misidentification happens because of the covering of the false ego. False ego is like that cloud which is covering the moon. So that's why the living entity, he's not sure. He's forgotten his own position because of this covering. But interestingly, that covering gets boosted because of the consciousness itself. In material existence, similarly, the living being in material existence is prevented from appearing directly by the covering of the false ego, which is itself illumined by the consciousness of the pure soul. Because the consciousness, the nature of the consciousness is Sat Chit and Ananda, because of this covering, that consciousness which is covered with this false ego, a person who is misidentifying does every activity in this material world like the original spirit soul should have done. So it looks to stay in this material world permanently. It is looking for knowledge in this material world. It is looking for happiness in this material world, because that is the characteristics of the spirit soul, Sat Chit and Ananda. And then what happens? So this further, just the false ego is the first covering. Then there is, mind and intelligence which comes, that forms the subtle covering. And when the gross covering comes in the form of the body, the misidentification becomes so strong because the soul is covered with two layers, and the person starts completely identifying himself with this material world. So that enjoyment, this misidentification actually leads to bewilderment. A person becomes bewildered. He tries to become happy, he tries to become knowledgeable, he tries to become eternal, but he's not able to do that. And there is a frustration, there is a bewilderment in life. Very interestingly, this verse also is there in Bhagavatam. These verses are very, very nice. They convey some of these messages very, very clearly. Tavad raga dayastenas tavad kara graham graham tavan moha angri nigado yavat krishna nate janaha tavat raga dayastena. So in this bewilderment, in this misidentification, when the living entity is desiring to enjoy, that desire to enjoy becomes actually the cause of biggest problem. Tavad raga dayastenas tavad kara graham graham. And that house where the living entity is living without the presence of Krishna becomes a karagraham. It's actually a prison house. Tavan moha angri nigado yavat Krishna nate janaha. So he's telling, until people become your devotees, their material attachments and desires remain as thieves. Tavad raga daya stena. Stena is, in the 3rd chapter also Krishna talks about that. Stena, he's considered to be a thief who does not give anything in sacrifice to the demigods. We are receiving all these things, but we are not giving anything back. That means we are thieves. Same word. Tabadraga dayastenas tabad kara graham graham tavan moho angri nigado yavat krishna nate jana. So he's telling, until people become your devotees, their material attachments and desires remain thieves. Their homes remain prisons, and their affectionate feelings of their family members remain food shackles. So the misidentification led to bewilderment, and in the stage of bewilderment, when somebody is trying to copy whatever the original spirit soul would have done, those desires, those houses that we are residing, became actually our more enemy. Then there is a very nice story which Prabhupada talks about, the story of a wife and a prostitute. In one of the recent somewhere I was hearing in the class which was going on, maybe in the kitchen. So there was this man who every day used to go to his wife. No, he used to go to the prostitute. And he will come and the wife will ask, why are you going to the prostitute? So the man says, she cooks much better than you. So then the wife for a few days started taking some culinary course and started making nice recipes, nice food items, and brought and gave it to her husband, saying that these are very nice items, you don't need to go to that prostitute. So the husband agreed for one night and then stopped going, and then the next day again he's gone. So then the wife asked, why are you again gone? So the husband responds, no, she dances very nicely. So the wife thought, okay, let me learn dancing. And she learned dancing and started to dance. So then said, I can only dance, why you have to go there? So the husband stayed back for a few days, saying that it's very nice, you are dancing, I will not go anymore. But again the next night he's not there at home. So then after that, when the wife asked, why are you going to the prostitute? Now I'm cooking nicely, I'm dancing also. He said that when I go there, she scolds me with some foul words and kicks me. So then the wife said, I can't do that because I really truly love you. The point I'm trying to say is, in the name of looking for enjoyment, in the state of bewilderment, a living entity constantly gets kicked by Maya. And that kicking and that beating by the Maya, a person becomes so used to that he starts enjoying it. There's a very beautiful verse again in Bhagavatam. It says, Yastvam vishrujate martya atmanam priyam ishwaram viparyaya indriyartham visham ati amritam tyajan. Yastvam vishrujate martya. Vishrujate is to reject. Yastvam, O Lord who is seated in our heart. When we reject the Lord from our heart, Yastvam vishrujate martya atmanam priyam ishwaram. Actually the Lord is our biggest well-wisher. He wants us to come back. He doesn't want us to suffer in this material world. At any cost, somehow He wants us to pull us back. But Yastvam vishrujate martya atmanam priyam ishwaram viparyaya indriyartham vishamati amritam tyajan. In the name of enjoyment, a person takes visham. He's taking poison, amritam tyajam, and he's giving up amritam, nectar. The mortal who rejects you, his true self, dearmost friend and Lord, for the sake of sense objects, whose nature is just the opposite, refuses nectar and instead consumes poison. This is what happens in the state of bewilderment. We are not able to get attracted to the Lord, and since we are lacking the attraction for the Lord, we want to enjoy in this material world, and knowingly, unknowingly, we are drinking poison, refusing nectar. Similar verse is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says very beautifully this: Paya manusa janma yena sune gaura guna hena janma tara vyatha haila paya amrita dhvani piye bisa garta pani janmiya se kene nahi maila. Paya manusa janma yena sune gaura guna. I mean, alas, you've got a human form of life. Paya manusha janma yena sune gaura guna. And you didn't hear about Gaura Guna, the qualities of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Hena janma tara vyatha hoila. That life is actually waste. It's a useless. Hena janma tara vyartha hoila. Then he's giving a comparison. Paya amrita dhuni. There is a stream of nectar which is flowing next to your house. Paya amrita dhvani. You saw that. This is the nectar which is flowing. But you are rejecting that Amrita Dhuni and you are going PA Visagartha Pani. There is a rejected drain. From that rejected drain, what are you drinking? Amrita? What? Visagartha Pani. Visagartha Pani is like poison. We are drinking that poison in that drain which is flowing. Piye Visagartha Pani. She is telling Janmiya se kene nahi moila. Why is he alive, that person? Why doesn't he die? Janmiya se kene nahi moila. So it's very interesting words. Anyone who attends a human body but does not take to the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is baffled in his opportunity. Amrita Dhuni is a flowing river of the nectar of devotional service. If after getting a human body, one drinks the water in a poison pit of material happiness, instead of the water of such a river, it would be better for him not to have lived, but to have died long ago. Janmiya se kene nahi moila. We all know this famous saying which Prabhupada keeps telling, which is from Chaitanya Charitamrita again, that what is that? Nikatastha maya tare japatya dhare. First line of that. Krishna Bahirmukhani. What is Krishna Bahirmukha? Bhogavancha kare. I mean, when the person forgets about Krishna, when he turns his face away, he is thinking of enjoyment. Krishna Bahirmukhani. It's Bhogavancha kare nikatastha maya tare jhapatya dhare. So the moment we turn our face away from Krishna bhuliya ji bhogavancha kare. Krishna bhuliya ji bhogavancha kare nikatastha maya tare jhapatya dhare. This is our present state. Unfortunately, the state is such a bewildering state because the desire to become Satchit and Ananda is very strong, because that is the nature of the spirit soul. As we saw, that false ego, which is the covering, becomes boosted from the consciousness. So we are looking for Satchit and Ananda in this material world, trying to have all kinds of means, ways to acquire permanency, knowledge and blissfulness. But that is the cause of our further entanglement. Going further, there is a verse which Prahlad Maharaj says to his demoniac friends, very nice verse. Sukham indriyakam daitya deha yogena dehinam sarvatra labhyate daivad yatha dukam ayatnataha. Sukham indriyakam daitya. He is telling, oh sons of the demons, my demoniac friends, Sukham indriyakam daitya. That material happiness, this sense gratification that you are looking for is available in every single species, in every single body. Sukham indriyakam daitya deha yogena dehinam. Every deha, every body is entitled for that kind of happiness. Sarvatra labhyate daivat. And this comes by daivat, by the arrangement of the Lord. Yatha dukham ayatnataha. Like we are not looking for this miseries in this material world and they come, similarly this material happiness will come. Sarvatra labhyate daivat. And it is available in all forms of human body, in all forms of every species of life, not just human body. So he is telling, my dear friends, born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. Then what should we do? He goes further and says, tat prayaso na kartavyo yata ayurvyayah param na tatha vindate kshemam mukunda charanam bhujam. These are all, Prahlad Maharaj is a Mahajan. He's a self-realized soul who's trying to give this instruction to the demoniac friends of his out of his great compassion. Tat prayasona kartavya yata ayurvyayah param. Tat prayasona kartavya. Don't make any attempt. Tat prayasona kartavya yata ayurvyayah param. Because in that endeavor, when you are endeavoring for any such glimmer of material happiness in this material world, yata ayurvyayah param, your ayu, your lifespan is getting reduced. Tat prayasona kartavya yata ayurvyayah param na tatha bindate kshemam mukunda charanam bhujam. Rather, he is telling that you should engage in mukunda charanam bhujam, in worshipping the lotus feet of Mukunda. Endeavors merely for sense gratification or material happiness through economic development are not to be performed, for they result only in a loss of time and energy with no actual profit. If one's endeavors are directed towards Krishna consciousness, one can surely attain the spiritual platform of self-realization. There is no such benefit from engaging oneself in economic development. Brahma, but however, even though we understand these instructions from the great Mahajans like Prahlad Maharaj, Brahma says something which is very powerful. He says that Yaj jiryati api dehesmin jivitasa baliyasi. This is in Brahma's prayers. It comes just the last two lines of a particular verse. Yaj jiryati api dehesmin. Even though this body is constantly degrading, it is deteriorating day by day. Yat jiryati api dehesmin, this deha is constantly getting degraded. Jivitasa baliyasi. But the asa, the desire to live, jivitasa baliyasi, it's very strong jivitasa. Oh, I want to live at any cost. Doesn't matter how dilapidated my body is, how much of this thing. Nobody wants to die. And they want to hold on to those desires, those beliefs, those things that I have to enjoy in this material world. Yat jiryati api dehesmin jivitasa baliyasi. After all, even as the body is growing old and useless, one's desire to continue living remains strong. If you see further, we will see this a very interesting instruction which comes in this episode of Dhritarashtra quitting home by these instructions of Vidura, which is like a wake-up call for all of us to meditate on. Vidura says, Andha pureva badhiro manda pragyascha sampratam Visirnadanto mandagnihi saragaha kafam udvan. Andha pureva badhiro. Pehle you were anyway blind before. Now you become badhira also. Badhira is deaf. Andha pureva badhiro manda pragyascha sampratam. Manda pragya. Your memory is now gone. Manda pragyascha sampratam. You have forgotten, you loss of memory. Visirna danto. All the teeth have fallen. Visirna danto mandagnihi. You don't have fire of digestion. Your liver is gone, it is gone. Visirna danto mandagnihi saragaha kafam udvavam. Saragaha and kafam, because of this mucus imbalances in these things, kapha vata pitta, you are producing some sound which nobody can understand. Saragaha kafam udvahan. You have been blind from your very birth, and recently you have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened, and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose. Your liver is defective. And you are coughing up mucus. Saragaha kafam udvahan. So what is he saying then? What should he do? Aho mahiyasi jantor jivitasa yatha bhavan bhimapa varjita pindam adate grihapalavat. Aho mahiyasi jantor. He's telling, alas, how mahiyasi, how strong, how powerful this jivitasa yatha bhavan. We don't want to give up. We want to live no matter how much of struggle, how much of miseries we are experiencing. Like that man telling that, I want to get those kicks and scolding of that prostitute. Aho mahiyasi jantor jivitasa yatha bhavan. That jivitasa, that desire is so strong. Hope for life is so strong. Bhima pavarjita pindam. Bhima is coming and just throwing something. The remnants. Bhima parjita pindam adate grihapalavat. Like a household dog, he's coming and throwing some things. You are living on that, and you are not, realizing that the time has already gone. But the desire to live in that way is so strong. Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog and are eating remnants food given by Bhima. This is what is our present situation. This is what we all go through. How that state of bewilderment leads to becoming mad, and that state of madness leads to only frustration in this material world. But the reason, the jivitasa, the desire is so strong to live with our family members, relatives, and these things, and without Krishna, how that is karagraham. This is actually a prison house where we are shackled by our desires and we are stuck in this material world. What is the solution? If this is what it is, if it is so depressing, pessimistic, then we shouldn't be even discussing about this. But there is hope, there is solution. But before we go there, it's important to also know, sometimes still, we hear this so many times, we don't realize the futility of our endeavor in terms of time and energy in pursuing this material happiness. There are three words which I was seeing in one of the verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It mentions about the material happiness, the nature of material happiness. The first thing is it is unattainable. Many a times we see this propagandas all over the material world that, you can be happy. Madhava, how will you be happy? You're now in different world. You've just taken the cap little below so that something cannot be seen. But the thing is, most of the people in this world, when they hear there is a propaganda, there is a promise that I can become happy by indulging in something, for many people it is very difficult to attain those things because they lack those resources. So that is why this is unattainable. It is not easily available that you can become happy by indulging in these things. You need a lot of money. You need a lot of Lakshmi for that. So the first thing that they say is it is unattainable. But imagine if somebody also attains it. The second thing is it is unpalatable. There is no rasa, there is no relish in that. You may get little bit of happiness in that, but it's not really tasty. It is not something which is so intoxicating that you can go on with your life, with that kind of happiness. So it is unattainable, it is unpalatable, and the third thing is it is unretainable. You can't retain it in life. It comes, you can just have it, you can experience it for a small fraction of second or some little time, and then it is gone. But look at the madness of people, how madly they are engaged in endeavoring for this, for things which is unattainable, which is unpalatable, and which is unretainable. Brahma, the secondary creator, in his prayers in 3rd canto, he says something which is very powerful. He's telling, I have created all of you. I have created, O human beings, all of you I have created, and I feel sorry that I have created you in this way. Kshut trit tridhatubhir. Kshut trit tridhatubhir ima muhur adyamanaha. Sitoshna bata varshair itaretaracha. Kamagni achyuta rusha cha sudurbharena. Sampashyato mano urukrama siddhate me. He is telling that Kshut trit tridhatubhir ima muhur ardyamanaha. I have created this body in such a manner that you are subjected to this threefold miseries. You will go through this. There is hunger, there is thirst, tridhatubhir, and there is imbalance. Kshut trit tridhatubhir ima muhur ardyamanaha. It's a very precarious situation. Outside there is sitoshna vata varshair. There is sita, there is winter, there is ushna, there is hotness, there is vata, varshair, there is rain, and all these things externally they are tormenting us. We need some temperature control, this thing, so much of problems, skin problem, this thing, that thing, sitoshna vata varshair itaretaracha. And inside kamagnina achyuta, there is the fire of lusty desires, kamagnina achyuta rusha, cha sudurbharena, and that can never be satisfied. How precarious our situation. He is feeling sorry after having created. O great actor, my lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable anger. Kamagnina achyuta rusha. Rusha is anger. I take pity on them, and I am very much aggrieved for them. This is the secondary creator, Brahma himself, praying, who has created us. He knows the situation more than anybody else. We are going through the situations, we are going through the struggle, yet we are not waking up. We have godly characteristics, we are meant to be there with the Lord, but forgetting all those things, we are busy in this material world, trying to be happy, trying to go after this material happiness. What is the solution? Anybody knows what is the solution? How can the jiva go back to his original position? Devotional chanting. Either you say devotional service or you say chanting the holy name. Chanting is actually one part of the devotional service. Yeah, any other thoughts? Follow the instructions of the spiritual master, yeah. What's a pure devotee? Devotee association. Surrender. Krishna consciousness. That sums up everything, right? You can't miss anything in that. The answer is right? We all know the answer. I don't have a slide for that. What is the right answer? We all know the right answer. But what we need to contemplate or meditate is how precarious our situation and how much we are caught up in all this material world. This series of things, when we see it in a fashion where somebody is entangled because of the misuse of his free will, and then he misidentifies himself, and then he looks for this enjoyment and gets bewildered, and then he's going through so much of misery just to get that happiness which is unattainable, which is unpalatable, and which is unretainable. But here is a solution. The solution is available in the form of Krishna consciousness, yet we are so lazy in taking up to this process. That's why very beautiful verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it comes, Maya Mugdha Jivera Nahi Swata Krishna Gyan. Jivera Kripaya Koile Krishna Veda Puran. Maya Mugdha Jivera Nahi Swata Krishna Gyan. A person who is bewildered, in that mugdha, in that bewildered state, it is not easy to know about Krishna. Maya Mugdha Jivera Nahi Swata Krishna Gyan. Jivera Kripaya, out of great compassion, the Lord has left behind the scriptures. Karile Veda Puran. Just one last thought and we will close and see if you have any questions or comments. Yesterday, you had made some salad, right? Yeah, there was this thing also in that, some dressing. So, imagine there is a bowl of salad which is kept. Bhagavatam also got off his attention. It's a healthy food, and maybe some of us were trying to avoid some chapati and things like that. Even though we don't really like salad, but now some dressing is there, so we are eager to go and take that prasadam. But imagine, just for a moment, instead of that bowl of salad with nice dressing, there are cucumbers, whole cucumbers, carrots, and beetroots, and other things are also there. They are also there in the same place, right? Will you be tempted to eat that versus a salad which is prepared with all the dressing? How many of you will be? Don't raise your hand. Who will go and eat cucumber and carrot and beet? Okay. For you, the example will be different. Let's say there is atta. Now, what do you like? Let's say you like pizza, which I know you like. So there is some maida, this thing, capsicum, and everything is kept in that thing. And there is one place, there is pizza. And you go there, oh, so nice maida, so nice capsicum, I'll eat this. Who will say that? Nobody will say that. Similarly, when we understand that this material world is made up of this 24 discrete elements, when we are able to see that, actually when the combination, it comes in a different particular form, we get attracted to it. But when we realize that beyond this, what we see, the actual external form, lies this discrete elements. When one understands that, he naturally develops a detachment for this. And that detachment is not something which is artificially practiced, because even if somebody says Athato Brahma Jigyasa, I should inquire now, he can easily get carried away by so many different paths. That is why we are extremely fortunate that we have come in touch with a pure devotee, and we have been given this path by Srila Prabhupada out of his great compassion. Now it is up to us to value what we have got and practice this throughout our life and ensure that we come out of it. Come out of this cycle of birth and death. So that's something we discussed today about Krishna's transcendence, how Krishna's birth and activities are not the same as any one of us who takes birth or does any activities in this material world. Then we spoke about how the jiva comes to this precarious position. What are the things that leads to this present situation that we are in, and that starts with our misuse of our free will, which leads to this misidentification, and that misidentification leads to bewilderment. And in that state of bewilderment, when a person is looking for enjoyment, he is getting more and more caught up in this material world. And that enjoyment, even though somebody gets, that is unattainable, that is unpalatable, and it is unretainable. That's why Prahlad Maharaj is telling that this is available in all species of life. Don't waste your valuable human life, time, energy in this. Engage in the service of Mukunda Charanam Bhujam. And then we saw how Brahma himself, the secondary creator, is telling that I have created the human beings that they're meant to go through this torture, this miseries. The body, this ways, it is so designed. So that is why we should take up to this process of Krishna consciousness, take up to this process of devotional service very seriously and come out of this cycle of birth and death. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. All clear, very good. We'll stop here and see in the next class. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam